All right, welcome everyone. This is now session 5. So today we're going to continue developing the floor plan and the model in general. I guess by the end of today's session we probably will get very close to completing the model as such, and then we can then sort of look at adding annotation to the floor plan and then developing the other views from there. So where we left off in our last session, we had just placed the deck at the rear. Now if you open up this little section here, and what I'll get you to do perhaps is if you can select the section and just drag it out, the section head, and also the section extent on the left here. And once you've done that, I'll get you to actually open the section. So we're looking at the deck here. This is we've placed the deck, but it's actually sitting at floor level. So it needs to, in fact, drop down to ground level. So it's just a case of with the deck selected, over in its properties, we change the level here from FFL to GL. Now, if you do a quick check or run a quick dimension on from the top of the deck to the floor level line, you'll need to do that to determine what the offset is, or the distance from the top of the deck to floor level. You need to you'll need to measure that and note what that is. Okay, so do that now. So whether you use the dimension tool or this one here, measure between two references. It measures off at 40 mil. So what you'll need to do, or we'll come back to the plan view. Now you'll notice that the deck itself, the Revit deck, has now disappeared. We can see the AutoCAD line work, but the deck itself has disappeared because it's actually now below floor level. So it's below our current view range. So we need to do something about that. We need to obviously adjust the view range so we can see just below floor level. So to adjust the view range, of course, we know that in the properties of the view, we have this setting here, which is view range, under extents. Now the view range setting here, whatever we do here will actually affect the entire view. I am reluctant to actually make changes to the view range, to the whole view, because it will have an effect on other aspects of it. So I'm going to close that. Now we also, within Revit, we also have I guess another mechanism that we can use, which will allow us to alter the view range, but only in a certain spot, not the whole view. So it's actually just localized. Now, that the tool or technique that we use you'll find on the View tab, and under here, under Plan Views, and it's called Plan Region. So it allows us to, sketch out a smaller, localised area where we can actually just adjust the view range in that area and just basically pick up on one or more objects. The way it works is that when we select Plan Region, we actually sketch out an area using one of the draw tools. And I guess typically the Plan Region, because they're obviously square or rectangular, we just use the rectangle tool. And really for the deck itself, you only really need to draw a small plan region just above the deck. Okay. Now, even in sketch mode, so of course to actually finish this, we actually have to click the green tick. But in sketch mode, we can actually adjust the view range over here. Now, all we really need to do is we need to sort of look below the current level, which is floor level. So all we really need to do is actually change the bottom offset and the level offset so that we can see the deck. So what do you think we might set this to? It has to be a positive or a minus? A minus. So minus, any ideas? Anything greater than 40, because that was the offset, that was the distance between at the top of our deck and the floor level. So if we go minus 50, and OK. Now it's not until we actually finish that the plan region will take effect. So I'll finish, and then having done that, we can now see our Revit deck, the family. Now you'll notice that we've drawn this plan region, we've adjusted the view range, but when we click the green tick, it disappeared. And that's because the plan region itself, the category, is turned off in the view. So I'll get you to reveal the category. Okay. Now you know you've drawn it there, around there. Now when it's revealed, it will be a dashed line, like a rectangular dashed line. So without knowing what the category is, how do you actually reveal it? Okay, light bulb at the bottom. Reveal hidden elements. Okay, so there it is there. Now what I'd like you to do is unhide the category. Because you'll notice that there are other ones. There's one over here, and there's a couple here. There's one here, and one here. So I've actually used them in the existing building to actually reveal or show certain windows that are perhaps above the cut plane of the view. Okay, so that's the reason we use a plan region. Okay, so when they're visible, they are a green dash. We're going to leave them visible for the moment because we're actually going to place another plan region. Okay. Now, to enable us to see, so the next thing we're going to do is actually along the western edge of the deck here, there are 4 90 by 90 posts. We can't see them at the moment because they are still part of the AutoCAD drawing, which is underneath the current deck. So in order to see each of the 4 rectangles, the 90 by 90, what do we have to do? Change the visual style to wireframe. So I'll get you to do that. Okay, so we've got the 4 posts here in outline in AutoCAD. Now I'll get you to zoom into the corner one here. Get in nice and close. Now we're going to place a physical post here, a 90 by 90, and it's going to be, if we go back to architecture, it's going to be, I say post, technically it's a column. Click on the bottom of the split button and select column architectural. Okay, so the first one that comes out is the 90 by 90. It's going up to FCL, that's correct. So initially you'll place it next to the AutoCAD outline. Okay, exit the command and then line it up with the AutoCAD line work. Now, the next thing I'd like you to do is I'd like you to use the array tool to generate the other 3. Okay, and leave them grouped. Now, of course, before you use the array tool, you're going to have to find out how far apart they are. So you'll have to run some sort of measurement on them. Okay. So I'm going from face to face, and I can see that they're 1260 apart. Okay, so using the array tool, group and associate, total number of items, will it be 3 or 4? We want a total of 4, including the one that we've selected. So move to second or move to last. We could use either of those options. Move to second. All you really need to do there is just click out here in a free space. Move upwards vertically and type in the offset, the distance between them. Okay, so that being 1260. Right, just just have a look at your 3D quickly. Just have a look at the 3D. Okay. So we've got the four columns here. Okay. Just go. I'll get you to open up the section view. So the section we created in our last session is now coming in quite useful for a number of reasons. So you can see one of the columns there. You can see that it stops at floor level, but it needs to extend down to the top of the deck. Okay. Now, because we have produced the columns in an array and they are grouped, to modify one or all, we actually have to edit the group. Okay. And whatever we do to one in the group will update all in the group. But to do that, we need to select one, go up to the group panel here and click Edit Group. Okay, so that takes us to a yellow background. Now we then reselect the column. We go over to the properties of the column, and to actually pull the column down, what do we have to do? Yeah, so we have to put in a figure in next to base offset of you sure?
Well, we measured the distance between the floor and that before, and that was 40. So
no, it's all right, I'm just playing with you. It is -40. You have to be sure, all right? Okay, so -40, so it drops down to the top of the deck. Okay, we then finish the group edit, and if you were to switch to your west elevation, you'll see that all four of them are now attached to the top of the deck. Right, so just come back to your floor plan, and I'll just clear that. So there's our four columns. Now, what visual style are we in at the moment? Wireframe. Can I get you to go back to hidden line? Notice what's happened. What's disappeared? The columns. So, you know, they were produced at floor level. They're now at -40, so they've gone below floor level. So technically we should be able to see them, but we can't. And if we move across to the other side of the building here, over here on the front veranda is also the same column. And you'll notice that I've got a plan region around that. So if I was to select that plan region and move it, okay, oh, it's still there. All right. Yeah, the plan region, this one here, is actually, notice how when it moves off the veranda, it disappears. and back onto the veranda it reappears. Okay, now this plan region, if we actually select it and click view range, you'll see that the bottom and offset and level depth is -500, yet the cut plane is actually 1800. Now, with the posts on this side of the building, I guess I went through quite a few different scenarios and settings to try and show the posts. And in the end, I opted for a plan region. But I found that, and I'll get you to do this, if you go back to the View tab, now that we can actually see our plan regions as we draw them, I'll get you to add a plan region, and just start up here, drawing a rectangle. Just draw a plan region to include the 4 posts. If you're not sure where to start, because we can't see them, it makes it difficult. So what you can do momentarily is change back to wireframe. Okay, so I'll just need to lift that sketch line just above that one. So I've got the 4 posts. I'll change back to hidden line. And I'll actually finish edit mode so I can see the dashed outline of the plan region. Now, to adjust the view range, you'll need to reselect it and click view range up here. So what would be the most obvious change to make here to see these posts?
We'd want to see the top of the post and the bottom of the post.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the thing is that initially I tried to set the bottom and level depth to -50, thinking that would do it, but it didn't. So I then went to cut plane, and I increased the cut plane. If you go to let's say 2200 and click apply and OK, that seems to have done it. So we've lifted the cut plane up very high, sort of very close to the top of these posts. So at a cut plane of 1200, for some reason it doesn't work. It doesn't cut through these posts and show us them in section. If we lift it a bit higher, we could even go down a bit lower than 2200 and it would still work. So it's obviously something in the design or the makeup of these posts that to see them cut through, we have to lift the cut plane. Okay, so I guess make sure that you are a hidden line and that you can see your posts. Okay, so now that we're happy that we can see the deck and the posts, we have no need to see the plan regions again. They'll just sit there. But the thing is that the interesting thing is that the plan region above the deck, if I move it out here, it still works. Okay, if I move it out here, it stops working. See how the line work's gone green again? Okay.
That's because you've taken it out of your box section that's got your all your information that you've been using to transfer.
Yeah, I imagine it's probably treating this as a, if we take this out here and across here, it's actually sort of taking this as a rectangular entity. Yeah. So now, if you can then select one of your plan regions and just hide by category. Okay, so all right. So what we'll do next is we're going to create a new floor type for the wet areas. So we're going to place a floor obviously here in the laundry and the ensuite and the main bathroom. So we're going to introduce a tiled floor. Now the tile size will be 200 by 200. So if I was to say to you, okay, let's begin creating a new floor type, where would you start? Well, you could go straight to floor here. How else could you create a new type of anything, basically, in the project? Sorry? Yeah, duplicate, but where else in the project can we actually create new types? In the project browser. Yeah, under families. Yes, good, that's the answer. This one we'll just do it by clicking, because we're creating a new floor, we'll actually select floor. The first one that comes up is timber floorboards, 19mm. So that's as good as any to make a copy of, to create our new floor type. So we're going to call it 200mm tile. Okay, don't forget to duplicate, because the timber floorboards is used, this particular floor is used in both new and old for the actual structure floor. So duplicate 200mm tile. And we're then going to edit the assembly or structure. Now the floor itself, we're really creating this floor for the sole purpose of putting in a pattern within the wet areas, a hatch pattern. Okay, you could, if you wanted to show a tiled floor above the main floor, you could increase the thickness to whatever a tile would be, plus grout. Because we only need it as a hatch, we're going to make the actual physical thickness of the floor 5mm. So here we change the thickness to give this floor a hatch pattern. What do we have to do? What do we have to assign? A material. Okay, so we need to assign a material and in the search list, so in the material browser, I think when you open it up, am I correct in saying that you can see a list of materials here on the left? Now these are project materials. Now you will need to actually do a search for a suitable tile material, and you'll need to search in the Autodesk libraries as well, which is this button here. This one here. So at the bottom here, and it might be sitting down here somewhere, you'll see Autodesk Materials. So you've done a little bit of work with materials. You had a brief look at these in Revit Introduction. We're not going to do a lot with materials apart from find a suitable tile material and change its surface pattern. So if we go up to the search box up here and do a search for tile, nothing much comes up here. Now these materials here, where are they located? Where are they physically located?
Out in the folder library.
No, these are actually part of the project here. So they're part of the project file. Okay, so these are said to be project or in-document materials. The ones down here are external to the project. Okay, so these are actually sitting on the hard drive of your computer. Now we're going to. You should be able to see a couple of porcelain tile materials here, a 6-inch and a 4-inch. Can you see those? Okay. Now to use the 6-inch, for instance, we have to actually click the up arrow and add it to our project. So it now sits up here. Okay. The only thing that we're going to modify is across here under graphics is the surface pattern. So if you click on the word none, it opens up fill patterns. We're going to go to model, and we're going to go down and find 200 mil squares. Okay, so that allocates the surface pattern. Now the colour, now the thing is that when the floor is placed, the surface pattern has to be a half tone, has to be quite light. So here, next to colour, click on this band here, and I'll get you to actually, in the red, green, blue area down here, which is currently 120, I'll get you to increase that to 220. So 220 for all three. Okay, so that will make the pattern quite light. All right, so that's really all we need to do is specify a pattern, change the colour. This is the material that's assigned now. So click OK, and then OK, and OK. Now, we can immediately place the floors, the wet area floors, Now, the first one, we're going to trace the inside of the laundry, and we're also going to include the ensuite. So the quickest way to do that is to use the rectangle draw tool, and what I would suggest is for your starting point, come up here to the inside corner here. Okay, keep going, and line it up with this wall face, come across, and line up the wall, the vertical wall on the left inside, and the outside of the horizontal wall here as the second point. Okay, so that's what we've done. Now we've gone, we've ignored walls around the ensuite. So rather than sort of tracing the laundry as one area and then the ensuite as a second, we'll just do it as one rectangle. Okay, so just finish on that one. With the message here, say no. You've got another error that says highlighted floors overlap. You can disregard that one. So it just means that our tiled floor is actually embedded into the 19mm floor underneath, which is fine. Realistically, if we wanted to show the tiled floor above the particle board floor or the structure floor, we would actually have to increase the height offset from level over here by 5mm. Okay. Now, having placed that floor, now that it's got a hatch pattern included, what we can actually do is if you mouse over the floor and hit the tab key, you should be able to pre-select any of the line work as part of the hatch, okay, like that. Now the other thing you can do is on that basis you can actually use the align tool and align the hatch pattern with the inside face of a wall, for instance. And even align it with the edge of the floor. Okay, so you're getting a full tile here. So that's where our tiles start. The other thing you can do with the tile, the hatching or the pattern, is if you select, so if you tab and click and select one of the lines of the hatch, you can use your rotate tool here, rotate, and rotate rotate through 45 degrees and put your hatch on the 45. Okay, if you wanted to. So I guess the thing is that if you are ever assigning a material to an object that has a hatch pattern and you want to actually show it on the 45, that's how you do it. Okay, on a one-off basis.
Would you do that, say, for instance, if you want the tiles to be like a herringbone pattern in the thing, that way you could sort of say, represent it as a, and then you make a notation herringbone.
That's one way, yeah. So I guess this will be useful not really for tiles per se, but it might be useful for other hatches, like when you're working in a section view and you're putting in an earth pattern, and you might want to rotate that through 45 degrees. Okay, so it's just something to note. Okay, so I'll get you now to add the tiled floor to the main bathroom. Now, something to note, if you have left your view in wireframe, you'll actually see the hatching coming through things like the bath, the vanity and the toilets. Okay, so no, you haven't done anything wrong. Okay, it's just the fact that the view is in wireframe. As soon as you change to hidden line, it'll sort itself out. Okay, all right, if everyone's okay with that, we'll move on. All right, we're going to have a look at creating these rainwater tanks next. Now for these, I'll need you to go back to Learn, to Part 1. Just scroll down and just open up the this document here, which we used in our last session to locate the plumbing fixtures and so forth. Now we're talking about these tanks here, of which there are 5. So they're a 2,000 litre poly tank, and the height of these things is 1985 millimetres. Now we're going to create them as an in-place family. Okay, so just have that open on your second screen. Now, I don't know if anyone's had any experience with families in general, creating them. Anyone played around with families? A little bit? Has anyone created a family in the family editor, which is separate from the project? No? Okay. All right. I mean, that's something that you may learn, in the future here at TAFE, families in general. The thing is that as far as families are concerned, does anyone know what the three groups of families are, or the three sort of titles of families based on their behaviour? Sorry? No, I'm thinking of families that are part of the project that can't be loaded, families that can be loaded. Okay, so you got walls, floors, ceilings, annotation are known as system families. Component families are loadable, so they're loadable or component. And the third type of family is something called an in-place, which is a family that you create within a project. Now, an in-place family is created as a bespoke, custom family within a project that just relates to that project itself. Anything that you create in a family, in a project that is a family, cannot be exported from that project and cannot be used in any other project. So when you're creating an in-place family, it's unique to the current project, and that's where it stays. So if you are setting out to create an object, some sort of 3D family, it's better to actually create it in the family editor, which is outside the project. When you are creating families with the intention of loading and using in other projects, you actually create them as a new family here. And the new family is based on a template. Okay, we're not doing this now, but this is the way you create a loadable family. Okay, when you're working in the family editor as a loadable, it's the same process as you work within the project. Okay, all the same sort of processes and techniques. It's just the fact that whatever we create in the project, we can't use anywhere else. Okay, and I guess if you want to model up something very quickly, then the in-place editor is probably the best option. I wouldn't recommend that you do too much of it because of its limitations. Now, to create the tank, so we create one and then we make 4 copies of it. So to do that, we go to Architecture, we go to Component and Model in Place. Now, I've said here that the category, I guess most suited to what we're creating, is plumbing fixtures. And that's the first thing that Revit will ask you is, what family category do you want to use? Why bother about putting a family into a category? What benefit is it? Yeah, so we hide things by category, don't we? Okay, we can override graphics by category. Okay, so it makes sense to categorize families where we can. If you have no idea, or if you don't have a category that suits what you're creating, put it into generic. Okay, don't spend too long thinking about it. Okay, plumbing fixtures. Okay. Now, so 2,000 litre poly tank is what we're going to call this family. Click OK. So you're now in the family editor inside the project. So you can see the tabs up here have changed. We've now got create, insert, annotate, view, manage, add-ins and modify. On the create tab we've got the first panel that we come to is called forms. So to create any sort of 3D geometry, we use one of these forms, extrusion, blend, revolve, sweep, sweep blend, and even void forms to subtract one entity from another to create cutouts. For our rainwater tanks, we're just going to create them with a simple extrusion. Now, in my sheet here, okay, it says set the level to GL. So the tank itself, or the tanks, have to sit at ground level. Now we have to do this as we create them. So the way to actually set the base of the tank to ground level is to do it through set work plane. Okay, so choose set work plane or set, and change the name or the level name to GL. Okay, now over here in the properties of the extrusion, we've got extrusion start at 0 and extrusion end at 2000. So the extrusion start at 0 is GL now. So we're producing upwards. The end is the height. So the height we know is 1985. So again, that's here. All right. Now, lastly, we need to use one of the draw tools and actually sketch the base or the footprint of the tank. Okay, so zoom in nice and close.
Would it be easier just to pick lines?
Yes, you can if you want. Pick lines if you want. Drawing a rectangle is 2 mouse clicks and picking lines is 4. So.
Then you don't have to worry about accidentally moving your mouse when you.
No, it's a good call. Yeah, I advocate for picking lines wherever you can. We note that we can lock the sketch lines. We don't need to, because we don't want to lock them to AutoCAD line work. Once you've sketched, you can click modify just to clear that. So there's our sketch. Now, when we so from here we finish. So that produces the extrusion, and we then go to a second finish to finish the in-place family. So there's our very, very simple in-place family. So if we go to a 3D view, there it is there. Okay, now it has these shape handles all over it. So the thing is that at this point in time, it's very easy to actually change the size and proportions of this particular family, which can be a problem. If I go back to the plan view, now I don't want you to do this, but if we move this or if we stretch this, if we click the shape handles, we can actually adjust the size or the footprint of this without too much difficulty. So so what I'm proposing, and I'll just use the align tool to get this back. So to introduce some form of constraint, and if you need to make a change to the family, then select it and do an edit in place. By the way, with this family that we've created, if I wanted to, oh, sorry, I'll just finish that. If I wanted to place another one of these, the question is, how would you place, how do you place a family in your view? How do you actually physically put an instance of a family or a type in your view? Place a component. So how did you put your plumbing fixtures in? How did you put your meter box? The answer is you used place a component. Now the thing is that if I choose place a component, and in my type selector here, I put in 2000 litre, which is what we called this tank, it's not there. Okay, so in creating this family inside the project, we have given it a name, but the project doesn't recognise it as a family to place other instances. So the only way that we can replicate this, make or put in other tanks, is to do what? Copy. Okay. And if you happen to delete it, you only one, guess what? You've got to start again. Okay. So it's quite, difficult to manage, I would say, and very, very inflexible. So it's better to create something like this in the family editor outside the project, okay? Because chances are you're going to use this again in another project, okay? But for our exercise, our purpose, we're just going to do it in the current project. Now, getting back, I'll get you to reselect it, do an edit in place, select it again, and edit extrusion. So we're going right back to the original sketch lines. And what I'll get you to do, zoom in nice and close and add a couple of align dimensions for the depth and one for the width. Now the idea is once you've placed those dimensions, reselect each one, just single click, find the padlock and lock the dimension. Okay. So by adding these dimensions and locking them, we're actually adding constraints. All right. So once you've done that, click Finish and Finish Model. Now, if I click on one of these shape handles and drag it, the whole tank moves. Okay. Interesting. Okay. So I'll put that back where it was. Now the idea is to select the original one, use the copy tool, click multiple on the options bar, select a suitable base point for the copy, and just copy it to the other 4 locations. Including this one at the northern end. Just be aware that obviously if you have made some sort of error in creating the first one, the error obviously will then be transferred to the other 4. But the thing is that if you fix the error in the first one, it's not going to update the others. Okay, so there's no relationship between these 5 individual copies. Okay, now just before we move on, now that we've added the rainwater tanks, and what I'll get you to do is just select the 5 of them and pin them in place. Okay, once you've done that, I'll get you to change back to wireframe. Now you'll notice that we've got the downpipes here, one feeding this tank here, and we've got 2 downpipes here feeding this tank here, and there's also a downpipe that will feed this tank here. Now when we change to hidden line, these downpipes disappear, and we need to actually see them so that we can note them. Now there's a few ways that we could actually make them visible. We could perhaps put a plan region around each of them, but I'm thinking probably the simplest way to do this would be to actually trace them with detail lines. Okay, thin detail lines. So we go to the Annotate tab. We go to or choose Detail Line. Now the line style or line pattern we'll use is thin. Now to actually trace these, I guess if you just mouse over them, you'll see that the two parts of the circle here will highlight. So there's two, so see how the left hand is highlighting there and the right hand. So the quickest way to actually trace these is to use the Pick Lines option. And pick the left hand half circle and click, and pick the right hand circle and click. And that way you trace the entire circle. Now if you change back to hidden line, you'll then have these two detail lines. Okay, now you'll need to be in wireframe, move across, pan across, and you'll need to do the same with these two, and also the downpipe that's feeding the tank on the northern side.
Didn't you just use the circle tool?
I doubt whether you can find the centre for that.
Doesn't that show up as like a triangle? That's midpoint.
If you did the circle tool, you use the diameter and pick both sides.
Yeah, I mean you could. Yeah, that would work. So. Yeah, it doesn't work here because we can't find a center point on the AutoCAD. So it's a matter of using the pick lines. Okay, when you've done that, I'll get you to change back to hidden line, just to confirm that you can see the downpipes. When you have, I'll get you to, we'll sort of concentrate on this one here, which is at the northern end. Just zoom in nice and close. There's just something that we have to do with the current downpipe location here. We actually have to sort of move this so that it actually feeds this tank here. All right, we'll go to a break soon, but just before we do, as I say, this downpipe here, this physical downpipe needs to actually move and be placed on top of these sketch lines to feed this tank. So we need to move it up and then across, so it's a two-step operation. Now, I guess moving it up to line up with the centre of this circle here, we could go straight for the Align tool Now, I'm picking up on on the end of one of these detail lines. Now, I'm not sure if this will work, but that becomes my reference, and the middle of this one, or the middle of the downpipe, so that seems to have worked okay. If we weren't able to get a suitable reference here, we would perhaps have to draw a reference plane. Okay, so again, reference plane here. So we might have to sort of do something like that and then use the reference plane as the reference. But it seems to be okay with just a point at the end of one of these detail lines. Now we need to then move it across so that it sits directly above this. Now I don't know how well this will work, but we need to find a vertical reference, which we're not finding. So here it is necessary to actually put in a reference plane, and I would suggest that you go for the centre and just draw upwards like that. Okay, and then using the align tool, select the reference plane and then select the vertical corresponding centre line of the downpipe. Now it's always best, because we've actually moved the downpipe, so it's physically moved up, and we've actually not so much moved the downpipe to the right, but we've actually stretched it. So before we move on, I'm going to get you to open up the north elevation and just do a quick check to make sure that the downpipe is still connected to the gutter here and is in fact dropping into the tank here. Okay. So in moving it across, we've actually moved it from attached to the wall to dropping into the tank here. So if you're happy with that, we'll go back to the plan view, and I'll get you to then delete any reference planes. All right, so rainwater tanks are now complete. I guess as far as the floor plan is concerned, I guess before we actually get to annotation, which is dimensioning and text, and I guess the green lines that you see here, yeah, there's line work there, and there's also line work through here. And also some line work over here. Now these are all detail lines, so it's easier just to use pick lines and just trace over the line work here. So I'll get you to do that now. Just add this little bit of line work here, the lines into the pantry here, and also the air conditioning system down here. Now again, just refer to my sheet on Learn. So with regard to the detail lines that you're adding, the sheet will tell you exactly which detail lines to use. Just do these ones first in the walk-in, then do the line work in the pantry here, and then just come across and do the line work for the air conditioning system. Once you've done that, we'll move on. So annotate detail line in your selector here. Just make sure you get the correct line style and use pick lines. Get in nice and close if you have to. Detail lines, and the dashed style is the dash 0.1 pen. Again, pick lines. Now, once you've added that little bit of line work, can I get you to change the visual style back to wireframe, which will reveal, if we get in nice and close, can you see the dashed lines here for the access point into the ceiling? There's also some line work here for a cupboard. And there's also, if we scroll down, there's also some line work here for the floor grate for the shower. Now, we're not going to simply just trace these with detail lines. We're actually going to use a different technique. And if we come back to this sheet here, you'll see that for the access point, and the cupboard here, so for these, and also the shower grate, we're going to use a what's known as a masking region. Okay, and essentially what that will do, it will actually mask out the tiled floor underneath. Okay, because the tiled floor should ideally stop here and here, and we'll also use it in this area here, and for the floor grate in the bathroom. Okay, so it's called a masking region. Now the masking region itself incorporates or has like an external line or a boundary line, which we can set or change. So in this case, the masking region will actually be, or have a external line work of 0.1 pen. This one here will be thin lines, as will this one here. Okay, so masking region here as well, using thin lines. Now we can perhaps start with this one down here. So get in nice and close. Now the masking region, or regions in general, are also classified as annotation, as are detail lines. So we've got region here, we've got filled region, and we've got masking region. Now we could have used a filled region for our tiles. Okay, so a filled region, are you guys doing AutoCAD at the moment? Not yet. Okay. No, a filled region, I guess, is the equivalent to hatching in AutoCAD. It's just it just introduces a hatch pattern into an area. But filled region doesn't work for some reason in these bathroom areas because it actually doesn't recognise the fixtures, the plumbing fixtures, so it runs straight through them. That's why I've actually put a floor underneath. Masking region is what we're using for these in these three areas. So it creates a graphic that obscures elements in a project or family. Lots of different reasons why you'd use a masking region. In this case, it's simply going to stop the line work going through the grate itself. Now, for your masking region, you just need to select a suitable boundary line. In this case, we'll actually just go with thin lines. And again, use your pick option and just pick the 3 lines here. Now, you will have to add a 4th one, which, I mean, you can draw this as a rectangle to begin with, or pick lines and just add a 4th one here, because it has to be a closed shape. Okay, so it needs to be closed. And as with anything else that's sketched, you'll need to finish. So that's the region itself.
If you're picking that lead edge on the wall, doesn't it take the whole wall?
No, I didn't pick this one. I actually drew that from point to point.
Okay.
Yeah. So yes, it will actually pick the whole wall. So you just need to draw from point to point. I guess the thing is, if I delete that and do it again, I could have just as easily drawn it with the rectangle from corner to corner. Okay. Now, we're currently in wireframe mode. If I change this back to hidden line, see the result. Okay, so this is so back to hidden line, and you'll see the masking region. Now, if I was to select that and move that, for instance, you'll see that whatever it is on top of, it's going to mask. Okay, so there we have it. Now, I'll just undo that, put it back where it was. So we're going to use the same technique, as I say, to draw in the outline of the linen cupboard and also the access point. So you'll just need to work in wireframe, just so you can see the AutoCAD line work underneath. So region, masking region. While we've got thin lines set, we can use the rectangle tool and draw in this one here. Okay, finish that one, so that one's done. And then do the same with this one. Now for the access point, you'll need to change the boundary line to -0.1 pen. Okay, so -0.1 pen, finish that one. Now when we change back to hidden line, you'll see the result. So this is a linen cupboard. This is our access point to our ceiling. Both done with masking regions. Now I'm thinking that we can almost do away with the AutoCAD drawing underneath. The last things that we really need to add, the last thing we need to locate, I guess, and we need the AutoCAD drawing for that, is the smoke detectors. So there's one here and one here. Now they're, while we're on the Annotate tab, they're also classified as annotation. So to add them in, They're much like the north symbol, so they're actually classified as a symbol. Now the smoke detectors have been loaded in previously, so they're part of the project. If you're working with a brand new template or a new template, the architectural template, these won't be a part of, I don't think they're a part of the standard template, so that they are something that you will have to load in from the Revit libraries. However, it's here, and it's just a matter of just don't have to be too fussy with it, just place them over the AutoCAD ones. All right, so now that we've put our detail lines in, our masking regions, our smoke detectors, we can, for the moment, I think there's probably no need to keep it visible. We can actually hide the AutoCAD drawing. So if I was to ask you to hide the AutoCAD drawing, I don't want you to answer me, I just want you to do it. All right, we'll come back to the floor plan shortly, but what I'd like you to do is just finish off the modelling or the exterior aspect of the project. I'll get you to open up a 3D view. Now the client has decided to render or apply a texture coat to the walls of the existing building. Okay, so we want to, we're not going to get rid of the brickwork, but we want to hide it or actually replace it with a texture coat or a render. Now to do that, we're going to assign or apply a material to the outside faces of the brick walls. Now when you were working with the first assessment task in Revit Introduction, which works with materials and rendering, do you remember how, well, I guess there's actually 3 ways to assign a material to an object in Revit. One of I guess the typical or most popular way to do it is through the type properties, as we did with the wet area floor. Okay, you can assign materials through the category, so you can actually assign a material to the entire category, which you looked at in that assessment task. Now there is a third way of actually assigning a material to an object. And I don't know, this didn't come up in the assessment task, but the third way to do it is if we go to the Manage tab, sorry, the Modify tab, and we go to the Geometry panel, up here you've got Paint. See this icon up here? Paint. So we can effectively assign a material to a surface by using a technique called painting. Now in the little arrow to the right here, you can actually add paint or remove paint. So if a surface is already painted, you can actually remove it and take it back to its by type or by category material assignment. So painting will override a material assignment that's done through its type properties. Okay, so that's the hierarchy. So painting will override everything else. And what we're going to do, is we're going to paint the over the brick walls with a render texture coat. Now, when you select the paint tool, you'll see that in this material browser, it will list all of the materials that are part of the Revit project, all of the in-document materials. Now, I have already put in a material called render. Now, it has the word render in it. So if you scroll down to the end, you'll find it here. It's called render beige textured. Okay, render beige textured. Now the idea is that whatever material you want to paint with, you select it from the list here, but don't close the dialog. Okay, don't click done, don't close the dialog. Move over to the wall surface. It will pre-select and then just left click to paint it. Okay, so you'll just need to do that with anything that has brick, any wall face that has brick. Now this is, of course, this is just the external building, that's just the existing building, okay, not the new. And we're just doing the walls. Okay, now I'll just close, once you finish, you can close the dialog. Now, if you suspect that a surface has been painted and you need to confirm it, if you go back up to the paint, remove paint tool and choose remove paint, without clicking, it should actually tell you if the surface has been painted, and if so, what material it has been painted with. Now, this is remove paint, so if I actually click on the surface, it removes the paint or the assignment. Okay, so that's remove paint. So paint, so it means that the obviously the brick material is still assigned to the wall, but we've now put this texture coat over. Now, what we have to do, if you move to the back of the building, you'll see that there's a window here for the into the laundry. Now, and also this the rear door and the window here for the laundry, both have a brick sill. So what we need to do is actually identify all the windows that currently have a brick sill, and through their type properties, so selecting the window and going into its type properties, you'll need to swap or change the material that's assigned to the sill. Change it from masonry brick sill brown, click over here and change it to the same material as the walls, which is that render, comma, beige. Okay, so if you put a search in for render, comma, B, it'll come up here, render beige. Click OK and OK. And that will update the sill for each of the windows in the existing building to the same material as the wall. Okay, so that's the rear one there. So you'll need to select the door and window here. Edit type. Change the sill here. Okay, and then just do the same with the front windows. Right, once you've done that, we'll come back to the floor plan view. What we're going to do next is actually put in our rooms. Now, just before we do that, if we come back to Learn. Now, if we come back to just have a look at Part 1. Now, just underneath this PDF here, we've got a floor plan, an A3 floor plan, which we'll use for room names and annotation. So just have a look at that PDF. So essentially this is the completed floor plan. So this is what we're aiming for. We won't, we'll start having a look at the text and dimensions in our next session. But for now, we're just going to use this to identify the room names and areas, including the deck. So I guess in some cases we're going to have to use separation lines to define the areas. So in particular the study, the hall, the entry, the laundry, and also to divide the kitchen and the dining room.
Is the walk-in room just annotation, or is that a room itself?
No, the WIR, sorry, the letters WIR that's not a room name, that's just text. So we'll get to that, yeah, later. Yeah. So when it comes to the bedroom, the 17 square metres takes in the entire room. And we will put it, we'll put that in as 3mm text a bit later. Now, before we begin putting our rooms in, we're going to need to put in separation lines. Now, zoom into this part here. And we're going to add separation lines, or a separation line across from here to here. Now I'll just, what I'll do is I'll just put on thick lines so you can see them. So there's our first separation line is there. The other two are coming off the middle of these walls. centre of these walls. Now, we need another one in the new part, coming from the corner down to here. Okay, is that going to do it? Now, I've also added a room label here, so here on the deck, and it's also calculating the square meterage. So I've actually added a room here externally, but to do that, what I did was I actually added a separation line along the edge of the deck, and then I was able to put a room in with a room name and obviously calculate the square metre. So I mean, room separation lines, don't have to be used for, just to section off rooms inside a building. They can be used to, I guess, create a boundary to calculate the area of something else. So if I choose pick lines and select the edge of the deck, and this through here. Now, you don't have to actually add your separation line around the building for this to work. Why would that be? Well, see, the walls themselves, they form a natural boundary anyway. Okay, so as far as rooms are concerned, you have to have an enclosed space, and you can either do that with a with a wall and a separation line. Okay, so a combination of both. So if we now use our room tool and move into this space here, it obviously calculates, or it should come up with 73 square metres. And of course, we need to then obviously, once the label has been placed, we then update it with the correct name. So as you're adding rooms and you're updating the room names, just be aware that the room names need to all be uppercase. Okay. So I'll let you just place your other rooms and update the names based on this plan here. Now, just before we go too much further, now that you've put your separation lines in, I'll get you to hide them by category. And I'll just turn off my thick lines, and then I'll continue putting my rooms in.
in your normal rooms you're not getting any room measurements?
There shouldn't be any reason why not. All right, so now that our rooms are done, just a couple more things we'll do before we finish today's session. So what I'd like to do next is to actually add in another section line, which runs through this part of the building, and then it actually sort of steps to the right and then runs through the kitchen here. So this one we're going to call section B. This one here, running through horizontally, will be known as section A. So we've already drawn in a section through here. So I'm thinking we'll just relocate the one that's going through here and put it up to here. Now I guess when you relocate it and stretch it out to this side, just note it's just sitting just above this eave line, okay? And it just needs to sort of pass just through the bathroom here. So this is the section I was referring to, this one here. So if you select the section marker or section line, actually by clicking on the line here, you can then click and drag it up and then just connect or click on the tail and drag the tail across to this side. Now, just so that we can get it in the right place, I guess, that's probably about it. I'll get you at this stage to actually show the roof. Okay, so just so that we can get this correct, show the roof. All right, so that looks good. That positioning there. Now with the, so again, if you select the, just reselect the section line. Now what we have to do over this side, on the right hand side, we actually have to change the tail so it looks like this. So there's actually, it has this bubble, the same on both sides. Now to do that, we can use this, this control here, which is cycle selection tail. So to click that twice, now with the section line still selected, is your, see the blue dashed line that's running up the left here across and down, does yours look like that? Okay. No, the thing is that I guess for some of you it will look like that, but the what we have to do is we have to click the little shape handles here and drag this across to about here. Okay. Don't know if how well you can see that. See, that's where that's just through there, just beyond the bathroom. Okay. Now the far clip, which is these shape handles here, that needs to be pulled up to about there. Okay. And while the section line is still selected, in the properties of that section, can you come over to its name, so view name down here, and just change it to section A, capital A. In fact, overwrite the entire name in capitals and call it section A. Okay, in capitals, section A. Right, and also if you can reselect it, and in the middle of the section line there's a little squiggle there, okay, called and it'll give you a description there, gaps in segments. Can everyone see that? So just click on that and that will actually put a gap in the section line. Now we're going to pull this one back. We'll readjust this in a minute. Okay, that one back to about there and bring this one to about there. So it just gives us a gap so that we can actually bring the section B through this area. Okay, so once you've done that, go back up to the View tab, select Section, and bring your next section line, starting up here, through the building like so, and we'll just move it across slightly to about there. Okay, so it needs to be passing through this door here. Okay, so now we're going to reselect the section and we're going to go over to its properties and rename it, call it section B in capitals. And while it's still selected, to put the obviously the split in it, so that it changes, cuts through takes a dog leg and cuts through the kitchen. With the section line selected, we use this this tool here called Split Segment. Now zoom in nice and close. So lining up as best you can, sort of line up with this section line, come across and click to split. Okay. Now, depending on which way you move your mouse, okay, it'll move up or down. Okay, so keep it downwards and just move it across until it actually cuts through the kitchen windows, just about here. Okay, so note where it's cutting through. Okay, now you'll need to change the tail. And just to tidy up, if you reselect section A and just draw in the lines left and right. Okay, if this part of section B is not lined up with this one, I mean, again, it's just by eye, you can actually move it up or down like so, as best you can.
Did you use your modify and align tool to?
I don't think it will work with that. I must admit I haven't tried it, but no, there's. I guess that there is a reason. If it had worked, if it did work, I would have suggested it. But okay. All right. So that's about as far as we'll go today. I guess before we start putting dimensioning and text on, we'll just need to add the door and window tags, but we'll do that next session. And we'll also add some tags to our walls to identify them. So we've got wall tags here, wall type 1 and wall type 2. So we'll do those at the beginning of our next session. So so just before you close down, I'll get you to, what we didn't do was select the deck and pin it. Okay. I mean, potentially you could actually select the section lines and pin those just to stop them from moving. All right, and that's about it for today. So, all right, thanks everyone. We'll see you next session.